do. What we want is to do our little thing and then sit down and rest and do something and when God has more to be done.
Right.
We want to say, well, I played my song. Well, I did my duty. I cleaned a torch. Thank God somebody cleaned the toilets. I like clean toilets. You say, are you preaching on cleaning toilets? I'm preaching on the fact that that's what your duty is. Everybody has a ministry. We're unprofitable servants. We've done that which is our duty to do. I'm just doing what I'm supposed to do. Paul teaches that he has that mentality. We see that in chapter 3. We'll see it again in chapter 9, in verse 16 and 17 of 1 Corinthians. He says, for though I preach the gospel, I have nothing to glory of, for necessity is laid upon me. Yea, woe is me if I preach not the gospel. For if I do this thing willingly, I have a reward. But if against my will, the dispensation of the gospel is committed unto me. I've got a responsibility to take care of my duty. I'd ask you this. If you were going to go and had a load of concrete coming in to pour concrete, and you went over there to get that concrete poured, and the people you had hired to form up make the form and put the rebar down and all that stuff had left halfway through the job, and the form was not framed. What would you do? Would you say, oh, that's okay. That's all right. No. You'd be saying, I've got this concrete. I ordered this concrete. Why didn't you get the job done? I'm asking a serious question because of the fact that Paul was saying, there's been a dispensation of the gospel given unto me. I've got a responsibility to preach the gospel of Christ. Yea, woe is me if I preach not the gospel. It's just my reasonable service. It's our duty to do. Chapter 15, in verse number 9, for I am the least of the apostle, that I am not meet to be called an apostle, because I persecuted the church of God. But by the grace of God, I am what I am. And his grace which was bestowed on me was not in vain, but I labored more abundantly than all. Yet not I, but the grace of God, which was with me. Paul said, that's who I am. That's what I do. And so we learn three things in this portion of Scripture. And I will give them to you and we will be done. We learn the proper attitude of a leader. We learn the proper attitude for the learner. And we learn the proper attitude towards the Lord. The proper attitude of a leader we see in the Apostle Paul. I'm just another nobody. Blessed to tell anybody about somebody who can save everybody. I did not say he will save everybody, but he certainly can. Oh, he's propitiation for our sins, and not for ours only, but for the sins of the whole world. He'll only save whosoever comes. Whosoever shall call upon the name of the Lord. But he's able to save anybody, everybody. Let me say this, my place is no better or no worse than anyone else's. The pastor, the preacher, the apostle, whoever it might be, should be realizing, I am a nobody. By the grace of God, I am what I am. I did not deserve it. I did not earn it. Though I can say, I got a Bible Institute degree. I can say, I've got an ordination certificate with about 14 men on it who recognized and laid hands on me and prayed for me. I've got a church that sent me out as a missionary, got a church that sent me out as a church planter. I mean, I've got people that would say, he's somebody. And you listen to me. That's a big blessing right there that anybody would even come and listen to me pray. But Paul taught us the attitude of a leader should be, I am a nobody. I'm privileged to have this position. For I say, through the grace given unto me, to every man that is among you, not to think of himself more highly than he ought to think, but to think soberly, according as God has dealt every man the measure of faith. It was God that gives you the position. It's God that gives you the ability to change lights. I didn't say light bulbs, that takes a little bit less ability, but to change light fixtures. It's God that gives you that ability. Not everybody can do that. So well, it's not much, it's pretty easy. And it probably is. Especially if you know how to do it. Not everybody can play piano. Not everybody can do everything. But God gave us a gift of grace that we could be able to minister. Paul also told us that he had the messenger of Satan that would buffet him, lest he be exalted above measure. Paul said, you know what? The reason I know I'm a nobody, one of the reasons is because God allowed me to struggle with some things, have some burdens that others might not have. I don't know what that messenger of Satan was, that thorn in the flesh that buffeted him. I don't know what it was, whether it was besetting sin that he struggled with. Was it a bad memory of couldn't forget all the people he had persecuted? Was it his broken body? Some say his eyesight. Because he wrote how large a letter I've written unto you, he says in Galatians, I believe it is. I mean, I don't know what it was, but there was something that kept him down. Some will say, because people would say, he couldn't really be an apostle, he was a persecutor. And we can find that in 1 and 2 Corinthians, that was people were saying that. I don't know exactly what it was, but the proper attitude of a leader is, I'm a nothing. I'm a nobody who gets the blessing to tell somebody or tell anybody about somebody who will save or who can save everybody. But what is the position or the proper attitude of the leader? Then we see the proper attitude for the learner. Here's the proper attitude. Ministers are men. Now that means mankind. I know people behind the pulpit are men. Men teach men and women. Women teach women and children. We understand that. We're not debating that. But they're men. They're men of like passing such as you are. They have a position, a prestigious position, but they're men. They have a possible position for those who God would have and give the grace to have that position if the man who would purify himself. Because in a great house there are many vessels, some to honor and some to dishonor. If any man will be a vessel of honor, he'll purify himself, he'll purge himself from the things that are evil. He'll go forth trying to study to show himself approved unto God, and workman not to be ashamed, right to divide the word of truth. He'll do what it takes to be that. But they're men. There's a different thing between saying, listen, this is my preacher, this is it, and saying, he's worthy of honor, or he's worthy of double honor because of what he has accomplished, what he has done, who he is. I mean, I love the people in the ministry, just to be honest with you. But let me say, I love the people that clean the toilets. I just keep coming back to the toilets. I like clean toilets. I like people that cook the food. I like food that's cooked, unless it's ice cream. Amen. I like those things. I like those that clean the facilities, cook the food. I like when they use the gifts that God has given them. Because everything God has called us to do and given us the ability to do, whether it's pass out a bulletin or turn on the lights. I thank God there was a sexton who got there that one day and was getting the heat going and keeping the heat going so that when Charles Spurgeon came by, then he'd get born again. I thank God for that. So Paul, he wrote more books than Apollos did. Have you read one of them? If you read through your Bible, you've seen the book of Apollos everywhere. Paul wrote more books than Apollos did. Does that make him better? I mean, Spurgeon preached to the thousands. Let me say, Nichols only preaches to around 100 on a big day, a super big day at the church. You say, who's Nichols? It's my pastor, Pastor John Paul Nichols. Spurgeon preached to thousands. Nichols preaches less than 100. But whose ministry is mightier? You say Spurgeon, he's got a big church. He had a big church. You're carnal. I'll just tell you right now, you're carnal. I don't care if your name's Sexton, Clarence Sexton, Ralph Sexton, any Sexton. I don't care which Sexton. Brother Sexton, Brother Nichols' pastor.
Yeah.
What's his name?
Wayne.
Wayne Sexton. I don't care if your name's Sexton. I don't care if your name's Spurgeon. I don't care if your name's Chapel, Hiles, whoever you got a name. I can name the ones in the area here and say, boy, that guy, that's a great ministry. And I'm not denouncing that. I'm not denying that. But if that church is built on that man, then the problem's the man, not the church. And the church has a problem, they're carnal. And if you're thinking it is, you're carnal. You say, why do you say that? Well, let me just give you about Nichols. Victory started a church in Shelbyville. Let me say, Metropolitan Tabernacle didn't do it. Of London. Did they do it? Victory started it. But they used to have less than 100 people. Now, I'm not saying that Mr. Spurgeon didn't start lots of churches. He taught lots of preachers. I'm saying, for one person, listen, the church we're at got started because of Victory. What I'm trying to tell you is that there's no big I's and little U's. And so when you say Paul preaches better, Paul's my example, that's great. But to think that he's better than Apollos, why? Is the guy out in the backwoods of nowhere as good as the guy who's in this big, fancy cathedral? Donnie Carter's one of them in West Virginia. I mean, a place you never heard of. Great preacher. Encouraging. I'm just trying to get you to understand the realities of this. Our attitude ought to be they're worthy of honor, they're worthy of double honor because of their position. But they're just men. They're just doing their duties. When missionaries come in here, we ought to treat them like they are a blessing to the church. When evangelists come in here, we ought to treat them like they're a blessing to the church. But we ought to remember that they're not something higher. There's no level here. Missionaries up here, pastors here, evangelists here, or big pastors, missionaries, evangelists. There's none of that. They're all just men doing their duty. They're unprofitable servants. But they're profitable for us. They're a gift to the church. To edify, to build us up, to grow us, and to reach the world with the gospel. But you're a gift to the church. With the same responsibility they have. You say, no, my responsibility is not to go around the world and preach the gospel around the world. To do your duty. That's what Paul said. You say, why? Because you ain't nothing but a nothing. Neither is he. He that planteth is not anything, and he that watereth. But it's God that gives the increase. So we go from the proper attitude of the leader, proper attitude for the learners, and the proper attitude towards the Lord. God starts the work. He said, verse number 5, who then is Paul, and who is Apollos, but ministers by whom you believe, even as the Lord gave to every man. God started the work. God gives gifts unto men. God puts gifts in men. God made you who you are. By the grace of God, I am what I am. Paul said, God started the work. He gives those gifts to men. He gave that gift to the church. He's the one who's doing it. Do not get the wrong attitude making a man something or making the church something, but make Christ everything. God starts the work. Let me not only say this, God does the work. Look at verse 6 and verse 7. I have planted Apollos water, but God gave the increase. So that neither he that is planted anything, neither he that water, but God that giveth the increase. Now I would ask you this. If nobody planted, would there be plants growing? No. If nobody watered, would there be water? Or would the plants grow? No. But you can plant and you can water, and if God sends a storm through, it can destroy the whole thing. God gives the increase. Our whole thing should be, thank God that God allowed me to plant. Thank God that God allowed me to water. Because He's the one who says, if I do what I'm supposed to do, then He's going to do what He's supposed to do. He said, upon this rock, I will build my church. His job. Your job. Is it to plant? Is it to water? Is it to go? Is it to grow? That's what planting has to do with going. Water has to do with growing. You pour the water on so it'll grow. But it's God that is the star of the show. And we keep on wanting to be those who go are the star of the show. Those who grow are the star of the show. And therefore we end up being carnal. God starts the work. God does the work. And then here's the funny part about it. Then God rewards us for the work. You say, what happened? Now he that planteth and he that watereth are one. And every man shall receive his own reward according to his own labor. Verse number 8. God rewards us for the work. Because all we did is what we're supposed to do. So the choice is, am I just going to do what I'm supposed to do? Or am I not? You hinder the work by not. But he still does the work if you do what you're supposed to do. He said, I'm going to let you in on it. Do you realize he could heal the blind by himself? Do you realize he raises the dead by himself? Do you realize that he does all those things, he has done them by himself? But you realize sometimes he uses a man. He wanted a donkey to ride on going into Jerusalem. What did he say? Go get me a donkey. And his men did what they were supposed to do, and they brought back the donkey. And he rode a donkey into Jerusalem. What if those men would have said, why don't he just get himself a donkey? Could they have done that? But they did what they were supposed to do. That it hindered things that they wouldn't have. If God tells you to go out and preach the gospel and you don't do it, even though he can do the work without you, he lets you in on it. For we're laborers together with God. But he should get the glory. Because God is the one who works in us, both to will and do of his good pleasure. See, we work not for God, but with God. We are laborers together with God. He's working in you both to will and do of his good pleasure. And you, at that time when he's working in you, you're supposed to work out what's worked in. And you're supposed to do what he's told you to do. For we're his creation unto good works which God hath foreordained, and we should walk in them. And therefore we just give glory to God. Paul said, you want to solve this personal dispute about personalities? We ain't nothing but nothing. You ain't nothing but nothing. But God is altogether lovely. God is everything about everything. Paul said, I'm determined to know nothing among you save Jesus Christ and him crucified. He said, let him get glory. Glory in the Lord. Why? Because to get the prideful division stopped, you must realize that without him, you can do nothing. And if you can do it without him, you won't use him. Because you want the glory. You say, why is that? Because nothing's always going to be something. And the world says, oh, you're not a nothing. You're not a nothing. You're not a nothing. You can be something. And they'll quote, I can do all things. And the Christian will say, I can do all things through Christ. You can do all things, or you can do all things through Christ, but you can't do anything outside the will of God by Christ. To accomplish what he wants you to accomplish, it's going to have to be him accomplishing it through you. Dear friend, the right attitude toward leaders, of leaders, ought to be on nothing. The right attitude of the learner ought to be a man holds a position. But in all reality, he's just another one of us. And we're nothing. The right attitude is towards Christ. He's everything. He's all I want, all I need. And there should be nothing between my soul and the Savior. If there's anything of pride in you, and let me say, there is. It ought to be, Lord, deliver me from me. Because I ain't nothing but enough. Father, I pray you help us.